Why, hello and welcome to this episode of Battle Chats. Now, for those of you who might not know what Battle Chats is a casual show where I talk about not necessarily gameplay or strategy, but simple concepts about fighting games or specifically our games in general that I feel are very interesting, useful, or just good discussion topics. Now, usually this show is just about BattleCHAT, but I'm thinking of expanding it to other games. However, for the first episode of its return, let's talk about some more BattleCHAT. Well, more specifically, our fighting card games. Our fighting card games, namely BattleCHAT and Exceed, are meant to emulate the experiences found in regular fighting games, much like Street Fighter. Now, here's the thing. A lot of things actually translate, and I want to talk about the specific kinds of people who play fighting games, or also known as fighting gamers. There is a small theory created by fighting game community member and fighting game legend, Laugh, that talks about a theory of the three kinds of fighting gamers, also known as the Laugh's theory of the three types of fighting gamers. This is a very interesting thing to talk about, because I find that it still applies to BattleCon and Exceed. Though usually I would like to give examples for both of these games, let's stick to BattleCon, mostly because I have more experience with it. Now, there are three main types of fighting gamer according to Laugh. The mind, the heart, and the body. These three gamers each have their own strengths, and each focus on a different part of the game. And usually these would apply to, again, video fighting games. However, fighting card games still seems to apply. Let's start off with the mind. The mind player is the kind of person who would lay out all the cards for a character and stare at them. Stare at them for long periods of time, thinking about all the cool moves they could do. This thing plus this thing might result in an awesome attack pair. If I do this attack pair in a specific setup, it might be undodgeable. What other cool things can I find? This is the mind. They like going into the lab, testing cards, testing combinations, finding out what specific attacks are good, what specific attacks are bad. If you ever need a prime example of a player who works this way, that's me. I like looking at cards and thinking what cool attack pairs we can make, what exploitable strategies we have. Stats, interactions, effects, that's what the mind player lives and dies for. They like playing big, dumb attacks because these attacks are good. Because they're good. They look at them and they analyze their worth, and they're good. It doesn't necessarily mean that they just have to be dumb attacks. Interesting attacks with tricksy effects can also be quite useful if in their lab they have theory crafted that it is quite good. The mind player loves to find out new tech, to find out new attacks, to find out new things they can do with characters that people believe to be solved. And that's their drive. They want to find that tech and abuse it. Next up is the heart. The heart player works with their heart. It's very hard to explain what the heart character is all about, what the heart gamer is all about. And if you've ever experienced in a game of BattleCon or Exceed, wherein you're about to enter and set your attack pair, and then somewhere deep within yourself, you say, my opponent's gonna play that. And then you just counter it. The next thing you know, cards flip, your opponent played exactly what you predicted. That is the heart. They play on what many people would say is feeling or gut feel. This allows them to essentially pull off some crazy looking things, seemingly reading the opponent's mind. This is the type of player who would go in and play attacks like Dimensional Exile or any other atrocious looking finisher simply because in their heart they feel it will work. The heart player is a character built around reads. This gamer loves making reads and loves doing 50-50 mix-up situations. If you ever need an example of a player like this, simply watch any game played by Tyrann Kid, who plays very much like this. In their heart of hearts, they can just feel that it works. Finally, let's move on to the body. The body, in usual fighting games, refers to people who have great execution. These are people who are able to pull off insane combos that are frame perfect, or pull off really hard mechanics that require a lot of mechanical skill, such as Daigo doing the Daigo parry or Evo Moment 37. However, in BattleCon, that doesn't happen. BattleCon does not have a form of execution, and in fact, BattleCon is touted, or at least promoted in the sense that it has zero executional barrier. This means that anyone and anybody can play good attacks. So, does that mean there's no body in a game like BattleCon or Exceed? I don't think so. You see, there's a big skill in BattleCon and Exceed that I haven't even mentioned yet. So, we have one aspect, understanding the game, that's the mind. You have the other aspect, reading your opponent, that's the heart. So, what's the last one that I haven't even talked about yet? Actually playing the game. Now you might think to yourself, no, that's just putting cards down. That doesn't require a lot of skill. And admittedly, that's true. However, one thing to separate the mind and the heart from the body is the fact that the body is good at math. You see, execution in BattleCon is really, at the end of it all, just complicated math. BattleCon is essentially a game of matrices, wherein you compare 15 options against 15 other options. This allows you to check which attack pairs beat what, and usually, by going through every single combination, you're able to find out what attack pair is most likely to win regardless of what your opponent picks. This usually refers to, essentially, playing your best buttons. Now, in a game like BattleCon, that's not easy to do, especially given time limits. You only have so much time, and 15 times 15 is more than 100 other possibilities that you have to consider, all while figuring out what might my opponent do, what might I do. These things can be very complicated. However, some players are really good at doing this thing, be it because they're really good at math or have really good heuristics in place. Either way, the body player in BattleCon is able to analyze contexts and board situations so well to the point that they seem to always have the right play at the right time. This is the power of the body player. And if there's anybody who embodies the body, it has to be Charles Engstrom, also known as Moon Knight, who we call the calculator for a reason. He can basically look at the board state and think about every single attack pair in existence, and then just figure it out, that this attack pair is the best one. So, what's the point of all of these three schools of thought? Well, these three types of gamers are a great window into what you might be like. Knowing which of these is your strong suit is very useful because of two things. It means that you're good at something in BattleCon, and that's great. However, it also means another thing. It informs you about what aspects of BattleCon you might be lacking in. So, here's the thing. Nobody is just one of these three things, okay? At some point in time, you have a little bit of everything, but you definitely have more of one thing. I have a lot of mind, but my body is really bad. And I'm not just talking about this. I'm talking about my capability to do lots of complicated calculations within a short period of time. This means that oftentimes when presented with situations I'm not familiar with, I tend to crumble down and play really bad attacks. Though those attacks might seem really good in usual context, without any specific positionings, they just look like good attacks. I end up playing them in bad contexts and situations because my body or my calculation capability is simply not good enough. Other players might be able to calculate really well. However, if you only calculate really well and never play the odds by trying to guess your opponent, well, you're never gonna win against somebody who makes a lot of reads because they essentially become unpredictable to you. This means that you have to learn every single aspect of these three things in order to become way better at BattleCon. And of course, there's a third one that I'd like to recommend. Depending on what kind of gamer you are, it actually has different kinds of characters in it. You know, certain characters in the game promote certain kinds of playstyles, and certain kinds of gamers are attracted to certain kinds of game styles. It's as simple as that. So here's a few examples that I'll give you, and hopefully this will be enough for you to figure out which characters fit into those categories. Mind characters tend to be characters that have a lot of hidden tech. These tend to be like the more complicated characters. I find they tend to have lots of effects or lots of cool cards. Joel, Enderbite, Sagas, all of these characters tend to have crazy, wacky interactions that mind players love analyzing. And by finding them out and seeing them, they can abuse them in the game. Next up, the heart. Heart players end up having a lot of characters that have great mix-ups and great abilities to punish opponents for committing wrong attacks or reward you greatly for making great reads. These are characters like Klinhide, Kadath, as they allow you to essentially punish people for making a wrong guess or heavily reward you for getting a guess correctly. Finally, we have the body characters. Body characters really benefit a lot from being able to figure out every single situation and essentially come out on top. These are characters that are like Seth. Seth analyzes everything, checks which one has the biggest hedges, and just does that. And ironically enough, Cadenza is also a body character as well. Though it might not seem like you have to do a lot of calculations as Cadenza, Cadenza doesn't have a lot of mind tech and he doesn't have a lot of reads either. Cadenza just plays the biggest percentage win rate attack and hopefully wins off the back of doing them a lot. These kinds of characters also really benefit from having a lot of stats. So if it has a lot of stats, you might be a body. So at the end of it all, these are the 3 kinds of fighting gamers according to Laugh, and that's how they apply to the game of BattleCon and in some part to Exceed as well. I would love to give you guys more examples for Exceed, but honestly, I can only give you one. It's Minato. He's Mind, of course, because Minato's all about shenanigans and finding out cool hidden tech. I might talk about some tech for him later on. So, I hope you guys had a little learning from this episode of Battle Chats, and I hope you guys all enjoyed. If you guys have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please put them in the comment section down below, and I would be glad to read them. Not much else to say. Don't forget your special action, and thank you, World of Indians. Thank you, good night.